Hi everyone, this is Hana. Welcome back to my island. At first, it seems the reporter didn't know the microphone was on. It was June 2026 at the 2026 World Cup.
이게 주장이어서 이렇게 소대장 뛰듯이 저렇게
그냥
그렇게 하는 거예요?
가까운 쪽에서 뛰는 거 아닌가 그냥?
카메라 가까이.
아니 뭐 군대에서 뛰는 것처럼 저렇게 뛰네. 주장이어서 그런가?
군대가 안 갔다 오면 뭐 국제도 우리
They were at the training ground in Mexico. Korean media were filming the national team getting ready for the tournament. The camera was following the captain. A man at 34 still runs harder than anyone, out in front like a squad leader. That was Sonny, Heung-min. Then from off camera, two men's voices drifted into the footage. They were Korean reporters who had flown to Mexico to cover the team. A woman reporter who was with them said the camera is rolling, but the two men didn't stop. If anything, they seemed to pick even sharper words. You know how men get worse when there's a woman around. Is he running like a squad leader just because he's captain? He runs like an officer in the army. And he didn't even serve the army. Beep, with the slurs. That conversation went out on the broadcast and spread around the world. Sports media in Mexico and people there were puzzled. Outlets in Britain, the United States, and elsewhere picked it up. The Korean team boycotted domestic press interviews outside their official schedule. Sonny led the team to a win over the Czech Republic with 2 goals and then walked past the mixed zone without a word. As of the moment I'm filming this, we still don't know which reporters talked behind Sonny's back in that footage. The Korean reporters have closed ranks and stay quiet for each other. In the same way, Korean reporters have not written a single line about this incident. Instead, they only write spiteful pieces saying Sonny snubbed the domestic press after the Czech win. Foreign media are asking a question. Why is Korea so desperate to dim the light its own player, a player the whole world adores? This isn't a story about only Sonny. Back when Park Chan-ho, Park Se-ri, Park Ji-sung, and Kim Yuna were world champions, Korean reporters threw scoring disputes, attitude controversy, and retirement pressure at them too. While BTS were topping the Billboard chart, Korean media talked about their military service before their music, looking for something to pick at. In the very moment the world bows in respect, we reach for a ruler. Does this person meet our standard? Are they qualified? Why do we keep doing this? This is my question for today. At first, it feels strange. Korea is a country with one main ethnic group. People say that no matter how badly Koreans treat each other, in the end, they look after their own. We even have a slang word, gukppong. It roughly means a Korean of intoxicating national pride. It's so common, it's part of everyday speech. So why does a country like that treat its own heroes more harshly? The answer is the other way around. We are harsher because we are one people. In a country where many races and many cultures live together, someone is rising up in an unusual way feels natural. That society starts from the idea that different people walk different paths. But it's different in society where the belief we are all the same is set deep in the bones. When someone rises up alone above that belief, it doesn't read as an achievement. It reads as breaking away. The fact that this person took a different path becomes a reason for suspicion, not for applause. The more a community worships sameness, the harder it pulls down anyone who leaves the line. So gukppong is not unconditional. It comes with the conditions. To put it precisely, it works like this. Not, I'm proud this person is Korean, but I'm proud this person represents Korea the way we want. Sonny lives in London and LA. He gives interviews in English and German. The more he becomes a citizen of the world, the more he slips from our Son Heung-min toward a Sonny who isn't only ours. Once the word starts to claim him, something inside us turns over. Gukppong was a kind of love that only worked while he stayed ours. Other countries have their elite, privileged press too. The powerful holding the pen is much the same everywhere. But there's one variable that exists only in Korea: the military. In Korea, military service isn't just a duty. It's a rite of passage. It's the most powerful leveling device still alive today, one that blinds all men into a single shared experience. A man who fulfilled it in a different way or who was exempted stands outside this huge shared experience. That's why the line, "I served in the army," works like a kind of class certificate among Korean men. When you think about it, it's a strange scene. When a British reporter goes to cover Sonny, there's nothing about Sonny that lets the reporter feel superior. Sonny is overwhelming in every way. But the Korean reporter still has one thing he believes only he has, and Sonny does not. I served in the army. Standing before the most expensive Asian footballer in the world, a man who poured his whole life into exams and rankings finally plays his last card. And the card is a record of military service. This one scene shows a sickness inside us, all at once. Here, someone might say it was just two small-minded reporters slipping up. A couple of amateurs who couldn't tell public from private. No, they didn't fail to tell public from private. In that moment, they believed they were in a private space. They didn't know the camera was rolling. So they just did what they always do. And that's what makes it scarier. What leaks out in an off-guard moment is who a person really is. That remark wasn't a spur-of-the-moment slip. It means they have thought that way all along. It means they were close enough to share that kind of talk freely with a colleague. It means they carried that feeling as they stood in front of Sonny, asked their questions, and wrote their articles. The problem wasn't the microphone. It was what was in their hearts. The basic of sport journalism starts with knowing your place. The athlete is the main character, and the reporter is the one who tells the story. When that sense is missing, the person being covered becomes something to be tested and judged, something lower than the reporter. A large part of Korean sports media has run on this structure for a long time. They don't cover an athlete as a human being. They treat the athlete as a stand-in for public emotion, as content to be consumed. So they always stand in the seat of a judge, asking not what kind of game did this athlete play today, but does this athlete meet our standard? When that judge's mindset meets a sense of inferiority, you get what we just saw. It's hard to climb up yourself, so you have to pull the other person down to your level to feel balanced again. The prospect becomes a tool of power in that moment. The status of being someone who covers, writes, edits, and sets the agenda becomes the only edge a reporter has in front of someone who shines far brighter. Being small-minded is no matter of ability. It's a matter of where you place yourself. But this doesn't end with the hearts of a few reporters. It's about how Korean society sees the arts and athletics. For a long time in this country, the arts and sports were the path for kids who aren't good at studying. School sorted them that way. So did homes and so did the media. A detour off the proper track, a second best choice. That view was reproduced as a system for decades. Even in the music world, where I worked as a reporter, there was a school tier cartel and a hierarchy. Take in the musicians. The way reporters treated someone like Jang Gi-ha, a graduate of Seoul National University, and the angle they took when writing about him was clearly different from how they treat other musicians who only finished high school or drop out of college. There's a reason the phrase knowing your place and bowing exists in Korean society. So the moment the artist, a performer, or an athlete reaches global success, society and the journalists who think they are far superior scramble. They have no language to handle it properly. They are proud, but they have no framework to fully respect this person. We were never taught how to bow in respect to someone who didn't study. So we swing between two faces. When the results are good, we lift them up as national heroes. When they fall short, we pull them down as people who aren't qualified. There's no middle ground. We treat them like a product that goes up and down with a performance. There's no steady respect for a human being. Here's the part that hurts the most. We are still clumsy at recognizing a different kind of excellence as excellence. The kind of excellence you can't line up by numbers like exam scores and resume points, the kind you can't grade on a fixed scale. Excellence achieved through the body, excellence achieved through art. The culture that respects these with the same weight is still thin. So a person the whole world marvels at gets torn down behind the training ground by reporters from his own country. It means the gap between what the world sees and what we see inside is exactly that wide. Talking about this brings back something from long ago. I was someone who left Korea because I disliked it. I was sick of the hierarchy, the abuse of power, and what I would call the hard work sickness, the pressure to always be grinding. When I started my diving life on a small island abroad, the first time I went straight to Korean wine shop as if it were the obvious thing to do. But a week in, I realized it was a miniature Korea. The people who had left Korea had packed Korea's hierarchy and rules into their bags and unpacked them again on that island. Seniors used the juniors as they pleased. Rank came before ability. Young women who had finished their full training period were given no pay and no chance to teach. They were only made to do odd jobs. It was the passion pay that suffered through so much in Korean society. On that island at the Korean run shop, I was always the one who was never seen as a real diver. One day, I had a huge fight with an instructor who was sexually harassing the young women interns, and I left for a Western run shop. And there, people told me I was a really excellent diver. Same people, same skill, and the opposite judgment. I was thrilled. I trained even harder and became an instructor teaching foreign students in English. It was something I had never once imagined doing in my life. As time passed and my reputation grew, the people from the nearby Korean shops gathered and started bad-mouthing me. Back then, I was just furious. But looking back now, it was no different at all from how Korean society sees Sonny, Yuna, or BTS. When the Korean shop instructors puts me down as someone who was never seen as a real good diver, It wasn't an assessment of skill. It was an assessment of how well I obeyed that community's hierarchy. What they measured with their ruler wasn't my ability. It was my compliance. And when I walked out of the Korean shop and succeed at the Western shop on a different path than theirs, I instantly became a traitor. When someone dismissed as talentless does well on a different road, it becomes proof that denies the community's hierarchy itself. The easiest way to erase that discomfort is to slap on a frame. She didn't win fairly, she cheated. The Korean reporter's line about Sonny, he didn't even serve the army, is one sentence that compresses all of this astonishingly well. Sonny, Kim Yuna, BTS, and me on that island all went through the same thing. We succeeded outside the path the community had set, and so we were attacked. Only the weapons were different. Military service, attitude, and so on. The weapons varied. The structure was one. You didn't win our way, so we won't accept that success. Of course, Korea isn't the only country that attacks its own stars. Argentina treats Messi harshly for a long time. Every time the team collapsed in a World Cup and Copa America World Cups, the criticism poured down. It got to the point where Atletico Madrid manager Diego Simeone said the criticism of Messi in Argentina wasn't fair at all. Brazil had the long rift between Neymar and its own press too. His teammate Dani Alves shielded Neymar's silence, saying that when criticism goes beyond what happens on the pitch, a player can't help but become sensitive. So similar things happen elsewhere, but there's one decisive difference. Argentina's case against Messi was that he couldn't bring home a trophy for the national team. Brazil's case against Neymar was his attitude in games and his private life. In other words, it was criticism of performance and behavior. So when Messi finally lifted the World Cup in 2022, the criticism almost vanished. The condition had been met. Korea is different. The basis for the attack on Sonny isn't his result or his play. It is, did he go through a social rite of passage our way? Military service has nothing to do with his play. Even if Sonny lifted the World Cup, the item, a man who did his service a different way, won't be erased from those reporters' minds. It's a condition that can never be filled. This is where our criticism splits from other countries' criticism at the root. It gets even clearer when you look at Japan. Japan also has strong collectivism and is close to a single ethnic group. But when Shohei Ohtani becomes the best baseball player in the world, attacks like this didn't come out inside Japan. If anything, the attitude was close to all. Same collectivism, but pointed in a different direction. Japan's collectivism works in the direction of don't let the individual shame the group. Korea's collectivism adds one more line to that. And don't let the individual rise too far above the group either. This one line of difference is what makes Korea, Korea, even within the same Confucian cultural world. This is where I should bring up the phrase crab mentality. Put one crab in a tub and it climbs out. Put in several and none of them get out. When one tries to climb up, the others pull it down with their claws. It's not a wish to save the crab going up. It's an inability to stand the sight of one crab climbing out alone. That's crab mentality. This is only a Korea thing. In the Philippines, it's been studied for a long time under the name Talangka mentality. It shows up big and small in collectivist cultures everywhere. So why is Korea's version especially fierce, organized, and persistent? It's because in Korean society, there's only one trap. In a society with many paths to success, pulling someone down doesn't do much to lift you up. There are many ladders, so you can just climb a different one. But in a society where there's only one ladder from the college entrance exam to a top university, and from there to a big company or a civil service post, the math changes. Pulling someone down actually benefits you mathematically. The zero sum game isn't an emotion, it's a built into the structure. If the pillifing crab mentality works horizontally, Korea's works on top of a vertical hierarchy. It's a society where pulling someone down has become almost the same thing as climbing up. It's like a squid game. Another reason is a special mix of honor and shame. In other countries, someone else's rise is processed as a simple envy. In Korea, it's experienced as my relative fall. When the person next to me goes up one step, it feels like everyone else got pushed down one step. This way of feeling it as humiliation rather than joy lifts crab mentality up to the level of a survival reaction. On top of that, we still carry a psychology of scarcity planted by the compressed growth of the industrial era. Korea went from extreme poverty to plenty in a single generation. People who lived real scarcity in their bodies passed that worldview straight to their children. Material plenty arrived, but the zero-sum feeling was never swapped out. The pali-pali culture, the hurry-hurry rush, and the pulling down doesn't foster slowly. It works explosively fast. The last decisive reason is high-speed internet. When world-class internet access combines with anonymity, an urge that would have stayed inside one heart turns into collective action in an instant. It's an infrastructure where the wish to pull others down gets organized and amplified. This is why Korea's culture of malicious comments and online group attacks stands out worldwide in its intensity. What Sonny went through, what Kim Yuna went through, what BTS went through would never have been disorganized without the digital space. The more crabs in the trap, the fewer get out. And our trap is very narrow with only one exit, and the crabs inside are connected to each other in real time through the internet. That's why Korea's crab mentality is fiercer than other countries. So why is it Korea, of all places, that ended up scrutinizing so hard whether you did it the way we decided? At the bottom of our hearts, there are 5 layers stacked up. At the very bottom is the civil service exam system of Joseon's 500 years. For all that time, there was only one road to social rise: passing the exam the state set in the way it prescribed. Achievement through any other path won no legitimacy. Joseon practiced Neo-Confucianism more strictly and for longer than China as homeland. The belief that achievement is only recognized when it passes the road the state set was carved into our bones over those 500 years. On top of that, sit the layers of colonization and war. In a time of outside threat, the boundary of us became a matter of survival itself. Then, belonging to the group or breaking from it wasn't a social norm. It was the line between life and death. That experience hardened into a moral sense. When we were all suffering together, where were you? Became not a simple jab, but a screening test for membership in the community. Above that is the layer of compressed growth. The industrialization that look other countries more than 100 years, we did in 30. To do that, the state had to design everything and everyone had to march in the same direction and the same speed. In the 1960s and 70s, the 새마을 or New Village movement openly organized a civilian society in a military way. In that period, the whole society moved like one army, and living the line was coded not as individuality but as betrayal. One gateway, the college entrance exam. One rite of passage, military service. One entry road, the big company open recruitment. They are all traces of the marching culture hardening into systems. Above that is the spread of military culture into civilian life. The problem is not conscription itself. It's that the language of the army spread through the whole society. Companies, schools, sports, teams, all runs on a grammar of hierarchy, obedience, and seniority first. Within that, a man who did his service a different way isn't just someone who fulfilled the duty differently. He becomes someone who didn't get that training. The memories of obedience, endurance, and humiliation that those who served share work like a kind of group code, and anyone who couldn't share in it gets sorted as not really family. At the very top is the layer of the single yardstick. From the old civil service exam to today's college entrance exam, for centuries, we shaved down the ruler that measures a person's worth until there was only one. A single yardstick creates a zero-sum game. When someone succeeds outside the set path, it shakes the entire value system of the people who gave everything to that path. When a person who became a global star without the entrance exam standards in front of a person who poured their youth into, you have to say that success isn't real to keep your own sacrifice meaningful. This is the real engine of the attacks. When these 5 layers work all at once, the conclusion is harsh. A society where more than the achievement itself, what matters is whether the achievement came through the road we decided. And a quiet agreement that the success of someone who didn't follow the road, however bright, doesn't have to be fully recognized. Let me make one thing clear here. Korea's privileged press doesn't take the achievement itself away from Sonny, Yuna, or BTS. They don't deny that Sonny is the one of the best player in the world, or that Yuna is one of the greatest figure skaters in history. If anything, they burn it as fuel for gukppong. But they keep 2 separate ledgers, an achievement ledger and a qualification ledger. They give full marks in the achievement ledger and still mark down the qualification ledger separately. You are the best in the world, but you should have done your military service our way. You are a world champion, but you should have managed your expression better. In most countries, when the achievement is overwhelming, the rest fades. In Korea, it doesn't fade. The 2 ledgers keep running separately to the end. Look at BTS. The military service debate dragged on for years, but the members enlisted one by one and completed their service. The basis for the attack, they didn't serve the army, disappeared. So, did the Korean press ease up? No. The moment one box in the qualification ledger was filled, the next box opened right away. Their comeback is late. They are not what they used to be. The solo work is getting ahead of the group. Only the weapon changed. They never closed the ledger itself. When one item is filled, they pull out the next. That's how our privileged press works. But for that ledger to keep working, someone has to keep reading it. Yes, the privileged press is a cartel. But what makes this cartel a cartel isn't only the people inside it. It's the people who click on the spiteful articles, who leaves the comments, who share them, who write a feeling. The people who quietly nodded that he didn't even serve the army. All those nods gave the ledger its legitimacy. Cartels are built from the top, but they lose their power when the bottom stops agreeing. They kept writing those articles because we kept consuming them. While the world was bowing to Sonny, someone among us was watching content and cut him down and feeling a quiet relief. That relief was the market. So this isn't a story we can end by blaming the only press cartel. Let's go back to the training ground at the 2026 World Cup in Mexico. This time, something was different. Sonny didn't fight alone. Until now, no matter how much he took, there was no response at the team level. But this time, his teammates closed their mouths together with him. The moment the group stood together, the old method of pulling one person aside and branding them too sensitive or ungrateful no longer worked. And that scene unfolded on the world stage of the World Cup. Korean media, who used to deal only with the domestic opinion, were placed for the first time in a set where they couldn't avoid responsibility in front of the eyes of the world. It may be a small crack, but cracks are where it begins. Those reporters through the mic was off, but the mic is always on. The ruler we quietly pull out in front of someone's achievement. The need to pull a person down to our own height before we feel at ease. The narrow heartedness that can never accept as family a person who shines on a different path. All of it was actually being broadcast the whole time. The world was already listening. We were the only ones who thought the camera was off. Why do we try to pull down a person the world loves? The answer to that question isn't in Heung-min. It's inside us. In the place in our hearts that resents a person who shone by walking a different road, there's something crouching. It's our own long-held lack, the lack of a road we were never once allowed to take. So I want to ask, when will we be able to look at a person who becomes a great in a way different from ours and just call them great? Can we put down the ruler, close the ledger, and simply applaud? I learned one thing on that small island. The moment you step out of the crowd that gathers to throw insult at someone's light, your own light finally begins to come on. The wish to pull others down has no end. But in the wish to recognize others, there is freedom. So everyone, what did you think? If you enjoyed this video, please support me with a like and a subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you'd like to support my channel, you can join the membership. This has been Hana's Island. Here, you are safe. Until we meet again, rest easy on the island that fits your own latitude. Take care. Bye.